The Gnostic movement is not against the schools, religions, orders, spiritual societies, and sects. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are not against anybody. We only signalize or indicate where the danger is. We, the masters of the conscious circle of the solar humanity, are obligated to speak when it is necessary to do so, and to keep silence when it is necessary. There are criminal silences, and there are infamous words. It is as bad to speak when it is necessary to keep silence, as to keep quiet when we have to speak. However, this does not mean that we, the masters, are against somebody. We do not hate anybody. We attack no one. We just signalize the danger. That is all. There are 4 classes of schools. Schools that teach to crystallize soul. Schools that teach to crystallize soul and to incarnate the spirit, the being. Schools that help as a kindergarten for humanity. Schools of black magic. Let us examine these 4 classes of schools in successive order. Schools that teach how to crystallize soul. To crystallize soul is something unusual for religious people. Many have calumniated us, qualifying us as materialistic people. Really, we are not materialistic. We are esotericists, and that is all. The intellectual animal, mistakenly called man, believes that he already has soul. Do not feel scared or scandalized. Observe with patience, analyze, investigate. The intellectual animal only has incarnated the Buddhata, the inner Buddhist principle, the essence, the psychic material, the raw material necessary to create soul. It is necessary to awake the consciousness, to awake the Buddhata, to strengthen it, to individualize it. That action is called to make soul. The schools that teach to get soul are governed by instructors that already have soul. Only he that has soul can teach to others the complete theory of the soul's fabrication. All schools that teach to get soul know very well that man has a pluralized I that misuses in a miserable form the psychic material in atomic explosions of anger, greed, lust, pride, laziness, gluttony, etc., etc., etc. As long as that pluralized I exists within the man, we will unfortunately be losing the forces of the Buddhata. It is necessary to dissolve that I if we really want to create soul. The true work of an instructor with soul will be to reform all of those who accept the reform, to make the people become normal, to direct a school of normality. Really, only the normals can unfold themselves. Only the normals can become supernormals. The multitudes do not have soul, are controlled by the pluralized I, and therefore do not have individuality. They are abnormal. This will be hard to accept for many, but it is the truth. We have to say the truth at any cost. Every instructor with soul has to teach to his disciples the theory of soul's acquisition. However, this is relative. The disciple has to do the work because the instructor cannot do the work for the disciple. Each one has to follow the path by himself. The instructor of a school of souls will work with embryos of souls, helping them in their growth, development, and progress. Every school that teaches the dissolution of the I is a school of souls. There are schools of souls in the teachings of Krishnamurti, Buddhism Chang, Buddhism Zen, Sufism, Christian Quietude, etc., etc., etc. Every school of souls teaches the technique for the I's dissolution. Really, only through the creative comprehension of all our errors in all the depth levels of the mind is the I disintegrated in an inevitable form. The schools of souls also teach systems and techniques to wake the powers of Buddhata, The schools of souls have very effective methods to awake the Buddhata. The schools of souls teach the science of inner meditation, through which the consciousness, the Buddhata, awakes. In this form, we will attain the inner illumination. The instructor of the schools of souls wants the annihilation of the pluralized I, Satan. The instructors of the schools for the souls want that the inside of each human being only exists one inhabitant, the Buddhata, the soul. Really, the nature of Buddhata is happiness. Buddhata itself is happiness. Every school that teaches the dissolution of the I is a school for the souls. Schools that teach how to crystallize soul and spirit. Every school that teaches to fabricate soul and spirit is a school of regeneration. The schools that teach to crystallize soul only do good work, but those that teach to fabricate soul and spirit do superior work. The man who only fabricates soul can be mortal or immortal. He is immortal if he enters a school of regeneration. He is mortal if he does not enter any school of regeneration. Every school of regeneration teaches the Maithuna, or sexual magic. He that rejects the sacred fire of sex becomes mortal. A soul that does not want to receive the sacred fire of the third logos loses its inner forces little by little, and after many reincarnations finally dies. When we work in the fabrication of soul, our work is done in the molecular world. When we work in the fabrication of the spirit, we work in the solar electronic world. The common intellectual animals really only know this cellular world, the physical world. Every authentic school of regeneration teaches the three basic factors for the consciousness revolution. Those three factors are to die, to be born, to sacrifice ourselves for humanity. The pluralized I has to die in order to create soul. We have to work with the hydrogen Si-12 of the sexual energy, transmuting it through the sexual alchemy in order to have the right to attain the second birth. Only by being born the angel within ourselves are we immortals. It is absurd to think in the advent of the fire if we do not know how to transmute the sexual energy. The sacred fire results from the transmutation of our sexual secretions. He that does not know the Maithuna, or sexual magic, cannot receive the sacred fire. If the soul does not receive the sacred fire, it becomes weakened and dies, after many centuries, little by little. The Gnostic movement is a school of regeneration that has the three basic principles of the consciousness revolution. Schools of regeneration are the Tantric Buddhism of Tibet, the Yellow Church of the Lamas, the Sufism with its dancing dervishes, the Buddhism Chang of China, etc. In the past, great schools of regeneration existed. Let us remember the Eleusinian mysteries, the Egyptian, Aztec, Mayan, and Incan mysteries, the Orphic mysteries, the mysteries of the Kambirs and Dactyls. The worst enemies of the schools of regeneration are the infrasexuals. The infrasexuals are the enemies of regeneration. The infrasexual considers himself superior to the persons with normal sexuality and hates mortally the suprasex. The Gnostic movement is a school of regeneration that is mortally hated by the infrasexuals. The degenerated of the infrasex consider themselves more perfect than the third logos and blaspheme against him, saying, "The sex is something so coarse. The materialistic sexual magic is something animal. We work for the spiritualization, etc., etc., etc." The degenerated people of the infrasex consider themselves more pure than the Holy Spirit and talk horrors against the sex and the sexual magic. Let us remember that the three principal forces of the universe are the will of the Father, the imagination of the Son, the sexual force of the Holy Spirit. Those who speak against any of these three logoic forces are, as a fact, a black magician. The work with the hydrogen Si-12 is really terrible. The initiate has to live the cosmic drama. The initiate has to become the central personage of that cosmic drama. The initiate that has attained the fabrication of the soul and spirit has the entire right to incarnate his divine immortal triad, Atman Buddhi Manas. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath. It is absurd to affirm that the divine triad is already incarnated. Only by fabricating soul and spirit can we incarnate it. Schools that help as kindergarten for humanity. There are thousands of schools that help as kindergarten for humanity. Those schools do not lead to the self-realization, but are useful because they teach the first elemental notions of the occult wisdom. Among them we have the Theosophical Society, the pseudo-occultist schools like the Max Heindel one, the spiritual centers, yogi centers, mentalists, pseudo-esoteric centers, etc. All of these schools have a lot of good and bad, but are useful. In them we learn the first words of the knowledge. Through them we get information on the laws of karma and reincarnation. Through them we learn something about the superior worlds. The kindergarten always is useful. The problem would be to stay in it all of our life. The kindergarten cannot help us to attain the self-realization. What the kindergarten can give us is the incipient, elemental information. That is all. In the kindergarten, we find hundreds of theories and authors that fight each other. Meanwhile, some affirm to the student that he does not have to eat meat. Others say to him that he can do so. Meanwhile, they say to him that a determined thing is white. Others affirm to him that it is black, etc., etc., etc. All the kindergarten schools believe to have the truth, promise to have the truth, but in reality, no kindergarten has it. The truth does not come to us for what we believe or stop believing. The truth only comes to us when the I has died and when the being has been born in us. Thousands of students spend an entire life in the kindergarten. Thousands of students live fluttering around from school to school, always snooping, always foolish, always injudicious. They fill their heads with contradictory theories, and if they are lucky not to lose their head, they arrive at old age completely failed, not having attained the inner self-realization. The fanatics of the kindergarten are the ones that hate the Gnostic movement and qualify us as black magicians, etc. At the bottom, they are just ignorant people that do not comprehend us, people that are unable to comprehend yet the initiative teachings of a school of regeneration. For this reason, they deserve compassion. The problem with the kindergarten, the negative aspect with these schools, is that they are full of infrasexual people, of people that insult the third logos, saying that sex is something coarse, dirty, materialistic, etc. We do not want to say that all the students of the kindergarten are infrasexuals, but we affirm without doubts that there is an abundance of infrasexuals in the kindergarten. Schools of Black Magic. There exist three kinds of tantrisms: white, black, and gray. The schools of white tantrism are based in white tantrism. The schools of black magic are based in black tantrism. The schools of gray tantrism are incoherent, vague, but lead the aspirant to black tantrism. White tantrism is the sexual connection without ejaculation of the ens seminis. Black tantrism is the sexual connection with ejaculation of the ens seminis. Gray tantrism is the sexual connection where sometimes there is ejaculation of the ens seminis and sometimes there is no ejaculation of it. The schools of regeneration forbid the ejaculation of the ens seminis. The schools of black magic do not forbid the ejaculation of the ens seminis, and even justify, in their way, that ejaculation with phrases and religious sentences. The crystallization of hydrogen Si-12. The initiates of the Tantric schools work with the hydrogen Si-12. This is the hydrogen of the sex. That hydrogen is processed in the human organism according to the laws of the musical octaves, from the Do to the Si. The entire human organism is gestated in the matrix with the notes Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si. The verb, the music, originate all creation. The hydrogen Si-12, after being intelligently processed within the human organism, can, through the Maithuna, without ejaculation of the N seminis, receive an additional shock that will put it in the note Do of a second superior octave. Then, after saturating completely all the organic cells, it will crystallize in the splendid form of an independent, luminous and shining body, the astral body of the adepts and angels of the Great White Lodge, the solar astral body. The common human beings do not have the astral body. They only have the ego that travels through the astral world during common sleep and after death. The ego replaces the astral body. Really, the astral body is a luxury that very few can have. We need to transmute the lead into gold. We need to create the astral body. This only can be possible with the hydrogen Si-12. The astral body is controlled by 24 laws, and its basic element is the hydrogen 24. He that already possesses the astral body can, through the sexual transmutation, put the hydrogen Si-12 in the note Do of the third superior octave. Then the marvelous hydrogen Si-12 will crystallize in the splendid form of the mental body. In this form, the initiate will have the Christ mind of the Gnostic Arhat. The mental body is controlled by 12 laws, and its basic element is the hydrogen 12 of the mind. That does not have to be confused with the hydrogen Si-12 of sex. I clarify this in order to avoid confusions. The mind of the Gnostic Arhat shines marvelously in the world of the universal fire. It is the mind that does wonders and prodigies. It is the mind that can do miracles. Every initiate in possession of a healthy physical body and astral and mental bodies has, through the sexual magic without ejaculation of the N seminis, to generate an additional shock to the hydrogen Si-12 in order to pass it to the note Do of a superior octave, an action that will produce the crystallization of the hydrogen Si-12 in the form of the conscious will body. In these highs, we already have the superior existential bodies of the being, of the spirit. The body of the conscious will is the causal body that is mentioned by Theosophy, that mistakenly supposes that is already possessed by all human beings, when in truth only the adepts of the Great White Lodge possess it. That body is controlled by 6 laws, and its basic element is the hydrogen 6. Only he that possesses the existential superior bodies of the being can reach the incarnation of his divine immortal triad, Atman, Buddhi, Manas. A man like that is a true man, a master of major mysteries of the Great White Lodge. A white adept is, of course, the positive crystallization of the hydrogen Si-12. However, we have to explain that there exists negative crystallization, the one of the adepts of the Black Lodge. They also work with the hydrogen Si-12. They have black sexual tantric rituals. They ejaculate the seminal liquor during the sexual connection. They also project additional shocks to the hydrogen Si-12 that put it in musical octaves inferior than the ones of this world where we live. Then the hydrogen Si-12 crystallizes in the ego, strengthening and developing it with all its tenebrous, submerged, diabolic powers. In Tibet, the Dagdugpa clan practices Black Tantrism. The black initiates, Dugpas, ejaculate the N seminis mystically. The Dugpas of Red Cape have a fatal system to retake the N seminis, charged with feminine atoms, from the very vagina of woman. Then they inject it through the urethra and reabsorb it with the force of the mind to send it to the brain. In this form, the adepts of the left hand pretend to mix the solar and lunar atoms with the purpose of awaken the kundalini. The intentions are good, but the procedure is bad, because the spilled ens seminis is charged of atoms from the secret enemy. The bad consequences of that procedure is the negative awaken of kundalini, the kundartiquardor organ is developed, and the negative crystallization of the hydrogen Si12. In the Western world, the schools of Black Tantrism cover themselves with the Christ and the Gospels, speak ineffable things, bless, and spill mystically the ens seminis. They obtain the same result as the failed ones of the Dogdukpa clan. Thousands are the schools that seem to be whiter than the snow and are more black than the coal. The most difficult thing is to recognize the black schools. Their tenebrous instructors, being demons, seem to be living Christs, and as is natural, fascinate their parishioners. One gets amazed listening to those wolves dressed with lamb's leathers. Normally, they are sincere and well-intentioned, mistaken people. They speak ineffable things and even become charitable and sanctimonious. How to doubt before so much sweetness? How to doubt of their kindness and tenderness and charities? The most curious thing is that normally these adepts of the left hand speak against black magic. How to doubt of them? However, they are more black than the coal. The problem is terrible. There exist schools of black magic that practice with a blank mind. They want the blank mind, not knowing Zen Buddhism, not having used a koan never, not having studied the science of pratyahara and the law of mental bipolarity, not knowing the law through which the essence of the mind is liberated from the bottle of antithesis in order to mix itself with the monad and to reach satori, illumination. The fanatics of those black schools believe that the blank mind, or better to say the quietness of mind, is something as easy as blowing and making bottles, and wait the moment when the great reality will enter into them to expel the animal, bestial entities that form the pluralized I. They want the divinity to enter into them not having the solar vehicles. Those vehicles are only possessed by those that have worked intensively with the hydrogen Si12. To try to incarnate the great reality not possessing the solar vehicles is like wanting to saddle before having the horses. The fanatics of those schools want to become conscious the subconscious, not eliminating the I before nor working with the hydrogen Si12. It is frightful to see them falling on the floor foaming in the middle of epileptic attacks. They are possessed, yet think that they are very well. There are many of them in the Subud, as in all the spiritualist centers, Cherenzians, etc. These poor fanatics of the black schools do not want to realize that they are still embryos, that they still do not have the astral body, that they only have the ego, and that if in the physical world they are apparently men, in the molecular region they are dreaming shadows, subconscious, cold, phantasmal. These poor imbeciles ignore that they do not have a mental body yet, that they only have the pluralized mental I that utilizes the mental substance as a vehicle. That poor silly people ignore that they do not have the body of the conscious will yet, and that they only possess the force of desire. Those tenebrous fanatics believe they are semi-gods and think that divinity can express itself through people that do not have the existential superior bodies of the being yet. The black magicians are lunar 100%. We have to free ourselves from the lunar influence and become solar men. We have to work with the hydrogen Si12, transmuting it according to the law of the octaves, in order to create the existential superior bodies of the being and transform ourselves into real and true men. The schools of yoga. In these times there is plenty of literature about yoga, and groups of yoga appear everywhere. It is necessary to clarify this aspect for the good of all the aspirants of light. In the Hindustan, 7 great schools of yoga exist, and all of them are useful because they help as a kindergarten for humanity. In the schools of yoga, there is a lot of useful and also a lot of useless. It is necessary to distinguish between the useful and the useless, between the most useful and the less useless. The serious students that have gone to Hindustan know very well that the best of all those schools, the most transcendental, is the sex yoga in the white tantrism. Those that have traveled through India, Tibet, China, Japan, Great Tartary, etc., know very well that the most serious aspect of yoga is tantrism. Really, without the tantrism, sexual magic, it is absolutely impossible to reach the initiation. The exoteric or public circle of every school of yoga is kindergarten. The esotericism or secret circle of every school of yoga is not kindergarten, it is a school of regeneration. In ancient times, the Maithuna was taught publicly in all the ashrams of Hindustan, but then the little brothers and sisters abused, created scandals. The gurus of those ashrams had to close the curtain of esotericism, and today the Maithuna is taught only in secret form in some ashrams. That dramatic decision of the gurus of those ashrams transformed those ashrams into kindergartens. However, those gurus practice Maithuna and teach it to the most prepared. In this form, they avoid scandals. In the Western world, yoga has not been comprehended correctly, and naturally, many infrasexuals have appeared who hate sex. Really, yoga without sex, without Maithuna, is like a garden without water. The yoga without sex is kindergarten, not a school of regeneration. Yoga without Maithuna cannot self-realize anyone. Let us remember the school of Yogananda. We know the Kriya of Yogananda. We have studied it profoundly, and it is incomplete. It lacks the Tantras. It needs the Tibetan Tantrism. Yogananda did not receive the complete Kriya. For this reason, that Kriya cannot self-realize anyone. Not even Yogananda attained the self-realization. Yogananda needs to reincarnate and work with the Maithuna. Only in this form will he attain the inner self-realization. The grave situation with the fanatics of the infrasex is that they are completely convinced that they can attain the self-realization by renouncing sex or by fornicating. The Theosophy and the pseudo-Rosicrucian schools have made the pseudo-occultist students believe that the intellectual animal already possesses the 7 bodies. That concept is false. What happens is that the clairvoyance of that theosophical society, because of a lack of cosmic initiation, have given a deficient information, confusing the astral substance and the ego with the legitimate astral body, and the legion of eyes thinkers with the authentic mental body, and the essence or buddhata with the causal body, etc. In this condition, and with this hypothesis in the mind, it is clear that the fanatics of yogism, pseudo-esoterism, or pseudo-occultism, etc., have not comprehended the necessity of creating the inner bodies. They believe that they already have them. They are misinformed. If they could comprehend profoundly the inner bodies and would base themselves in the law of the philosophical analogies, they would work with the Maithuna, or sexual magic, because they could comprehend that as beyond, so below, and that with that same act we engender the sons, also, by the law of analogies, with that same act we engender the inner bodies. Unfortunately, our pseudo-occultist brothers are terribly misinformed. The ignorance is the mother of all the errors. Inverential peace, Samael Aun Weor.